ഹലോ ഹായ് വെൽക്കം ടു സ്ട്രീം. വേറെ ഒന്നുമല്ല, ഞാൻ പെട്ടെന്ന് കുറച്ച് സ്പീഡ് റൺ ചെയ്യുന്ന പോലെയാണ്. കാരണം ഞാൻ ഇപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ എത്തിയതേ ഉള്ളൂ. ഞാൻ കുളിച്ചിരിക്കുക. ഞാൻ പെട്ടെന്ന് തീർത്തിട്ട് വേണമെങ്കിൽ കുറച്ച് പ്ലാൻസ് ഉണ്ട്. സോ ഐ ഗസ് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ ടൈറ്റിലേക്ക് പെട്ടെന്ന് കിടക്കാം. ടൈറ്റിൽ വേറെ ഒന്നുമല്ല, ഞാൻ ഇന്ന് ഫ്രണ്ട്സിൻ്റെ കൂടെ ലുലുവിൽ പോയില്ല, ഓഫീസ് കൊളീഗ്സിൻ്റെ കൂടെ. ആൻഡ് പ്രിറ്റി മച്ച് അവിടെ ഞാൻ മാസ്ക് ഇല്ലാതെ ഇരുന്നു. ആൻഡ് സം പീപ്പിൾ ഹു വർക്ക് അറ്റ് മൈ ഓഫീസ്, ഐ തിങ്ക് ദേ സീൻ മീ ബിഫോർ, but they are asking like ഞാൻ ടീമിന് പുതിയതാണോന്ന് apparently, because one, I don't interact much, but because I wear a mask all the time, people have rarely seen me unmasked. So yeah, so basically അത് മാത്രമേ ഉള്ളൂ, വേറെ ഒന്നുമല്ല. ആൻഡ് ഞാൻ പെട്ടെന്ന് ഇത് തീർത്തിട്ട് സ്മൈറ്റ് തീർത്തിട്ട് വേണം എനിക്ക്. ഇന്ന് സൺഡേ ആണ്, സോ മോസ്റ്റ് പ്രോബ്ലി മുഷോക്ക് സൺഡേ. സോം 100ന്റെ സെക്കൻഡ് എപ്പിസോഡ് വന്നു. വെരി നൈസ്, വെരി ഗുഡ്, വെരി ഓസം, വെരി എപ്പിക്കൂസ്. വേറെ എന്തുണ്ട്? വേറെ പ്രത്യേകിച്ചൊന്നുമില്ല. ഐ എം തിങ്കിങ് ഓഫ് വാച്ചിങ് സംതിങ്. എന്താ മറ്റേ ഇതിൽ ബാക്ക്ഗ്രൗണ്ടിൽ. ആൻഡ് let's see.
Juggernaut is often seen as the beginner's carry, an easy hero with a simple game plan that has always remained the same. But is that true? Or are there secrets lost in his past? Today we're going to dive into Dota history and deconstruct one of the game's most iconic heroes, and explore his strategies and his performance at the most important Dota events, the International Tournament Series. So, how good was your Nero, the Juggernaut?
I am the Juggernaut, bitch.
Juggernaut was a melee agility hero that was implemented into Dota 2 on the 30th of September 2011, shortly after the International 1 concluded. His attributes were fairly low and not particularly noteworthy. His first ability was Blade Fury had Juggernaut spin rapidly for 5 seconds. During that period, he became magic immune, silenced, and dealt significant magic damage to enemies around himself. This ability was very dangerous, starting at 80 damage per second and scaling up to 140. In total, that amounted to 400 damage at level 1, which could easily be argued to be the highest in the game. During Blade Fury, Juggernaut could attack, but his attacks wouldn't deal damage. This meant that his attacks during Blade Fury could still apply secondary effects, like for example Skull Basher or Eye of Skadi. When specifically attacking magic immune targets, including buildings, Juggernaut's attacks would deal their full damage instead. Blade Fury was incredibly powerful during the early stages of a game, as it could be used to quickly overwhelm opponents. However, it carried significant risk, as Juggernaut had to get close to enemies to deal damage, and was still vulnerable to attacks. Juggernaut's second ability was Healing Ward. This spell summoned a healing ward next to Juggernaut that provided a regeneration aura to all allied units in a 500 radius. As far as healing effects go, this was one of the strongest in the game, as it healed based on a percentage of the ally's maximum health for up to 25 seconds. Starting at level 3 of the ability, it was able to easily recover any nearby allies to full HP. However, the healing ward could be destroyed in a single attack. Due to its significant restorative powers, it was always a high priority target and would often be taken out quickly. To keep it alive, Juggernaut could move the healing ward around at 300 movement speed. Good Juggernaut players kept it far out of the way and would use the healing ward to dip in and out of the fight to restore health to his teammates and their units. This was aided by a unique property of healing ward. Most auras in Dota have a linger duration, which means that the aura still applies for additional time even after its targets have left the radius. Usually this linger duration is 0.5 seconds, but for Healing Ward it was 2.5 seconds, giving it significant healing power even if an ally entered its radius only for a brief moment. At maximum level, this amounted to 12.5% of a unit's maximum health through the Linger alone, which still applied even if the ward was destroyed immediately. Healing Ward was an excellent and unique ability. Blade Dance was Juggernaut's third ability. This was a simple path that provided Juggernaut a chance to deal a 200% critical strike. The chance scaled a bit weirdly, starting out at 15%, going up to 25% at level 3, and then jumping to 35% at level 4. Unfortunately, this meant that to get a decent benefit from this ability, Juggernaut had to level it up all the way. Finally, his ultimate was Omni Slash. This spell had Juggernaut leap to his target to attack with a set number of slashing attacks. It also applied a mini-stun to its initial target, which could be used to interrupt channels. Now bear with me, things are about to get a little weird. This ability has some strange nuances. These slashes weren't strictly speaking attacks, and instead
a quick 3 games കിട്ടിയിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ കൊള്ളായിരുന്നു.
For the ease of understanding, we're going to refer to those as slashes. During Omni Slash, slashes on his target. Although with each slash, he had a chance to move to a nearby possible target and slashing that instead. While this was happening, Juggernaut was invincible. Between each slash was an interval during which Juggernaut could attack normally, using his normal attack damage and attack speed.
One enemy remaining.
You see it. Have a look at this clip of Juggernaut using Omni Slash. Notice how after each slash, Juggernaut hangs in the air for it. During this period, Juggernaut could attack normally. This meant that although Omni Slash didn't strictly speaking scale with his attacking prowess, those in-between attacks did, and they scaled specifically well with his attack speed. The higher Juggernaut's attack speed, the more additional attacks he could get between Omni Slash slashes. Combined, the slashes and attacks made Omni Slash one of the most damaging abilities in the entire game. It wasn't rare to see even opposing cores die to a single cast of Omni Slash. However, the damage could be dispersed by having multiple targets for the ultimate available, as it would randomly jump to other units in its radius. As Omni Slash was leveled up, it increased how many slashes it did, eventually granting a significant invulnerability duration during its effect. Omni Slash also had an Aghanim Scepter upgrade that increased the number of slashes. Juggernaut was
പനി പിടിച്ചു.
agility late game
Hopefully
carry,
not.
but didn't quite scale as much as he would
Reloading.
Instead, he offered a lot of early game fighting and significant team support. Reloading. Seen many significant balance changes, as it was dominated by the implementation of 44 additional heroes. Still, Juggernaut received a few small buffs to his ultimate before the International too. Omni Slash now dealt a bit more damage and had an increased number of slashes. Particularly his Aghanim Scepter was boosted by during the International 2, Juggernaut was an unpopular choice. He was picked 6 times with limited success. TI2 was heavily centered around the idea of pushing, as towers were worth much more gold than they are in modern Dota. It was common practice to invest at least partially to secure those resources. TI2 was also a dual push the offlaner was sacrificed to enable the rest of the team and secure money for the main carry. And
last player standing
of the Venus finals, when Beastmaster did not get a single point of experience until 5 minutes into the game. Because of this, it's usually important
next play.
Struggled with this. He didn't have great tools for scaling into the late game, and he was better suited for an aggressive early game carry role. Unfortunately, that wasn't what most teams were looking for at the time. In particular, he struggled to use his ultimate successfully because of the meta around him. Some of the most popular heroes were summon-based: Naga Siren, Chen, Nature's Prophet, and Enchantress. Teams would usually have additional units accompanying them, summons that would inevitably absorb Omni Slash hits. Blade Fury could also be shut down by
Turret
Njan's
out.
Siren. Her net is magically leading Juggernaut
Reloading.
to helplessly stay in place. The few attempts to play Juggernaut as a position 1 physical carry failed.
Placing alarm bot.
Fit the method. That's not to say that the hero didn't see any success at all.
Recalling
Yet
my
again,
bot.
it was the team that goes against the grain, Na'Vi, that managed to make him work best. They used him as a push-enabling tanky frontliner, putting heavy emphasis on healing work.
The hunt begins!
Let's have a closer look at Game 2 of the upper bracket semi-finals. IG versus Na'Vi.
Placing
This,
sentry.
I would like to welcome
Finished.
My name is Alexander Dashkevich. Hello everyone. My nickname is Ghost and I played for NATO Swin server since 2011 and or maybe even 2010, 2015.
In this game, Juggernaut plays in the safe lane. He is immediately given space to occupy the lane on his own and maximize his experience. At only 2 minutes into the game, Na'Vi kills the opposing Darkseer and then starts breaking down the tier 1 tower.
One enemy remaining.
Anticipated. My ultimate is ready.
Unfortunately for them, Darkseer is excellent at slowing down pushes.
Last
and
round
his
before the
constant
switch.
Iron shell spam
Last
has
round to
broken
use our
their
creds
momentum.
and abilities. Don't
Juggernaut
waste your
resets
firepower.
into a farming state, while his supports move into
I got
the top
money. Need
to
something?
deny their own tier 1 tower. The healing ward is already coming in handy, as it allows Havost to survive against Darkseer in the lane. This item build is a little unusual and gives away Navi's game plan.
I needed Mother Region all the time
Here.
to outpush these shielded creeps. Yeah,
Here.
that's why either you build the bow and
Enemy spotted A.
that's it, and with Perseverance you can get anything. I decided to do this. So
Initiated.
that was the plan, to get towers and then with the circuit boards you can take the high ground, you can take Roche, you can
Placing sentry. Area's clear. Placing alarm bot.
My rules!
Spike down A. Last player standing.
ആരും നോക്കിയില്ലേ what the fuck.
There is one more game in finals. There I made Power Tree's Vanguard Shield. It's even more ridiculous. But easy to build. Waves and kill.
Easy. This is what I'm working with, huh?
Na'Vi finally
Switching
managed
sides.
to break the bottom tower. They immediately
Look
move
your
in
enemy in
to
the
take the tier 1 there and then aim at top. Juggernaut is fully embracing the pushing plan, leveling up Blade Fury and healing mode all the way to max first before touching Blade Dance. Na'Vi takes the top tier 1 and then the tier 2 tower.
Alarm bot
IG
out.
can't and
Bot
doesn't
coming back.
contest this. The Anaga
Alarm
Siren
bot
still
out.
requires more time to become powerful. Na'Vi knows this, and they are not slowing down, immediately moving for the mid-tier 2. It's impossible for IG
Turret
to
out.
delay this aggression, as the summons break down their buildings,
Don't
and
overthink
Juggernaut is
it.
keeping his
That's
team
my job.
permanently on full health. The only outer tower left is the bottom tier 2. IG has a dangerous combo on their team, Song of the Siren and Vacuum. Song of the Siren made the opposing team fall asleep and invincible. However, at that time, Vacuum could be used on heroes affected by Song of the Siren. This allowed for incredibly easy combo setup. IG sees the writing on the wall and they decide it's time for a play.
Turrets
For that
destroyed.
play.
Away. I believe it should be Zoe. They're gonna cut for the
Last
storm.
player
fuck.
standing.
Storm up the river.
Spike planted.
Patience from Zoe. Waiting in the wing. Navi's about to be caught.
A.
Oh, this could be a total disaster. Vacuum in. Ravage on everyone. The black hole as well. Line of Evan. Turns it around. Ravage as well. Stolen by Deadly. Are you kidding me?
Scissor
They
bullets
turn it
tickle.
around. 4 heroes dead. For
5
IG.
heroes dead. Chuan trying to survive. Chuan's gonna go down. Puppy talked about the Naga counter. It's Light of Heaven with this BKB. They turn it around. I don't even know how they're gonna do it. Standing ovation.
Turret out.
Okay, we didn't expect that from behind, but
Placing alarm bot.
I have BKB, Danny has Blink, And yeah, so the only thing that we catch is Shadow Channel and Enchanted. So that was pretty much a bit like desperate from them. We didn't have to worry over here because they can't catch us. They don't have the possibility to pierce through DPD because they really can't catch me and they can't catch Enigma. And that is the two heroes who can kill whole 5 open team. From this moment, game looks easy because they can't do anything. They don't have ultimates, and we can just do whatever we want.
From here, it's just cleanup. Navi takes the bottom,
Spike planted.
then the barracks. They reset and go for Rashad. Naga Siren uses her song to steal the edges, but it doesn't make a difference at this point, and Navi smoothly secures the victory. Navi plays
Last
the
player
start of
standing.
Juggernaut 2 more in their game against LG,
Ride and shotgun.
Match point.
Let's get these idiots.
Magidron, Soul Ring, Vanguard, Battle of Fury, and Abyssal Blade. This unusual style of Juggernaut was only used by Navi.
About Juggernaut itself, it was hard times of playing because the variety was close to zero. You couldn't like deep for any builds. If you play the proper carry, you buy Battle Fury Manta or Battle Fury Sanjin Yasha.
Placing sentry.
Like usual.
Alarm bot out.
But in particular situations where it was the Warlock against you and some
The hunt begins.
From summons, and you could like purge the strong summon with Diffusal Blade. Otherwise, you just buy Battle Fury and farm, and you go pretty much the anti-mage build inside that strategy. So I would just go tank and range
Spike
heals
down,
and, stay
attacker
behind
spawn.
and try to deal some damage and disable every other.
Now we're cooking.
We were playing with Juggernaut against.
Ultimately, Juggernaut wasn't bad, but the meta wasn't suitable for him. While Navi got some success out of the hero, even they used Juggernaut as more of a surprise pick as opposed to anything standard. Patch 6.75
Spike down,
offered
mid.
Juggernaut some assistance. Omnislash now killed lane and neutral creeps in a single hit. This made the ultimate more useful in
30 seconds left.
jungle situations. But unfortunately, it didn't help with the core issue of being pulled down by summons, as this change did not apply to player-controlled units. Juggernaut also had his base attack time reduced from 1.7 to 1.6. This change is impactful, but to truly understand it, we have to take a deeper
10
look
seconds
at
left.
how Dota works. Base attack time describes a unit's default interval between attacks, while excluding attack speed bonuses. A unit's actual attack rate, as in how often they attack a second, is calculated using
My ult's ready.
and attack
The
speed
enemy
bonus.
only looks composed.
There are two ways
Their
to make a
hearts
unit
tell a
attack
different
faster in
story.
Dota. Either increase their attack speed or lower their base attack time. The standard base attack time for heroes is 1.7. Deviating from this value has a significant impact on the hero's viability as an attack-based damage dealer. As of writing this video, Hoodwink has the worst base attack time at 2.0.
Placing alarm bot.
You want to play? Let's play.
Assuming they both have maximum attack speed, Hoodwink attacks once every 0.29 seconds, while Anti-Mage attacks once
Reloading.
every 0.2 seconds. In other words, Hoodwink attacks 15% slower than an average hero, while Anti-Mage attacks 21% faster.
Oh, fuck! അത്
Anti-Mage
ഹെഡായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ
attacks nearly 50% faster than Hoodwink. Side note, Alchemist's Chemical Rage gives him the lowest base attack time of any hero, going all the way down to 0.9,
No fucking-
which would be the equivalent of 1322 attack speed on a normal hero, and nearly 90%.
Spike down, mid.
Paper, scissors, axe.
Considering that for most heroes,
One enemy remaining.
and immediately made
My
territory, my rules!
Okay, 4. Nice comeback. Nice comeback.
To connect with more additional attacks in between his
Sudden death.
slashes.
They're just batteries.
The international free method was still heavily defined by tri-lanes. As already mentioned, tri-laning was a strategy where teams placed their main core and 2 supports into a single lane. This allowed them to basically guarantee significant farm on that core, as it was incredibly difficult to fight into free heroes. The core would then become powerful quickly and apply
Placing alarm bot.
which would then funnel money back into their supports. Dota was different back then. There was less money available in general. As a result, it was difficult to farm up free heroes, and so most teams focused on only 2 of them, their mid and tri-lane core. Usually, teams wouldn't challenge the tri-lane. Offlaners were tasked with survival and would frequently concede the lane entirely and go into the jungle instead. However, with any metagame comes the development of counter strategies. On the one hand, tri-lanes were a secure way of getting your core farmed. On the other hand, a tri-lane committed
Spike planted.
Calling my
Alia!
space. If you could figure out a way to beat that, you practically won the game on this.
Placing swarm grenade.
So,
Enemy spotted A. Swarm
to try
grenade
it,
out.
obviously.
Placing swarm grenade.
At the international free, Juggernaut was promoted an aggressive tri-lane core. His job was to be powerful in the early game, so that he and his 2 supports could
Here.
challenge the opposing tri-lane and shut
Turret
down.
out. Turret destroyed. Got one.
One enemy remaining. Last
Damage.
player
Oh,
standing.
please, no.
If he got close, his supports would be chosen
Please.
Juggernaut's entire
Attackers
game plan was
win.
about really power. Face boots into magic wand, and bracer into drums, and then an Aghanim's scepter. His skill build also shifted a bit, getting a single early point into blade dance to help out with damage. Players like Korok would spend the entire early game chasing down the opposing tri-lane, even if that meant sacrificing his own farm. Juggernaut was about tempo. Juggernaut was about crushing the opponent before they ever came online. Unfortunately, an aggressive playstyle like this would leave the hero underfarmed, as he wasn't focusing on last hitting as much and would frequently die.
Match found.
To make up for this, a Juggernaut pick was often accompanied by a greedy mid laner, like Shadow Fiend or Outworld Devourer. Teams would shift roles, making their mid their primary farmer, while turning Juggernaut into a secondary or even a tertiary carry. This strategy was incredibly risky. If Juggernaut won his lane, his team gained a huge lead. At the same time, if he didn't, then his team would fall far behind. Juggernaut games were always short,
Killjoy,
ended
easily.
quickly,
I've already
one
sorted
way or
everything.
the other. As the tournament progressed, Alliance's defensive playstyle took center stage and influenced the other teams. Unfortunately, Juggernaut didn't fit into that. He wanted to fight, but often teams wouldn't let him. When Orange tried in the game against Alliance, the hero fell flat, as Alliance did something weird. They surrendered farm. Instead of trying to challenge the Juggernaut lane, Alliance shifted their focus to Nature's Prophet in the offlane and Kunkka in the mid. They basically told Orange, go ahead, farm up that Juggernaut. Gyrocopter will catch up after laning is over, and your hero can't carry. Alliance was right. While Juggernaut offered early game power, he wasn't a proper mid to late game carry, and by focusing on the other lanes, they managed to win the game quite easily. Juggernaut filled a distinct and unique role at the International Free as a tri-lane breaker. Unfortunately, this was a risky strategy, and as such wasn't particularly popular, especially as the tournament continued and teams figured out counterplay. Still, he saw play in 19 games total, which is a perfectly respectable performance. After the International Free, Juggernaut received a series of nice buffs. Healing Ward had its movement speed increased from 300 to 450. This made it quite difficult for melee heroes to destroy the ward, as barely any of them could break that speed threshold and catch up.
Time to kill some radiants.
Omni/'s Aghanim Scepter was buffed and now reduced the ultimate's cooldown to 70 seconds. This cooldown reduction was a huge deal. There were certain benchmarks for the usability of cooldowns. Omni/' without Aghanim Scepter had around 100 seconds cooldown. In practice, that meant that the ability should only be used in important fights, as otherwise it might not be ready when needed. With Aghanims, it only had 70 seconds cooldown, which is just at the benchmark for respawn times and getting back into position to continue fighting. In other words, it allowed you to use the ability for pretty much any encounter, giving much more freedom. Coupled with the increase in damage, this made Aghanim Scepter a very powerful weapon. Juggernaut also
Reloading.
This allowed for fun plays with Blink Dagger to extend Omni/'s reach, or could be used effectively with Mask of Madness
Enemy
and Satanic,
spotted mid.
both of which were great ways to recover health during the invincibility provided by the ultimate.
Our spike carrier is down.
Spike down mid.
Again a change to his base attack.
Placing alarm bot.
First going
Killed
down
my
from
bot.
1.6 to 1.5, and then going from 1.5 to 1.4,
Reloading.
giving Juggernaut the lowest base attack time in the
Sage kill.
set Juggernaut up to become a proper carry, and at the International 4, he reprised his role as an aggressive tri-lane core for a single game. While the strategy we saw at TI3 still worked, Juggernaut actually shifted roles and was mostly played as a support. Now, I don't want to give the impression
Variable removed.
One enemy remaining.
it was just
Last
Oh!
player standing.
I have the
However,
spike.
Team DK
No.
used the game.
Happens.
So let's talk about Juggernaut support.
The sage
Team
cannot
DK
protect
used
them
to be
all.
structured primarily around their ace player, Burning. However, after TA3, they picked up two new players, Mushi and Ice Ice Ice, both of which excelled and garnered significant attention at that tournament. This changed Team DK
Placing
to an
sentry.
all-star team. They had 3 core players that were all incredibly good, but they also all shared a greedy playstyle. To properly utilize those players, Team DK had to protect all 3, which wasn't really possible using the traditional laning setup. That's where Juggernaut's unique capabilities came in. Blade Fury was one of the highest damaging abilities during the early game. Healing Ward could quickly reset an ally back to full health, and Omni/" threatened even the most durable supports. Team DK usually pair Juggernaut with a long-range disable-orientated support like Skywrath Mage or Shadow Shaman. The pair then roamed the map, always moving wherever their opponents applied the most pressure. Juggernaut would never spend much time in a lane. If there were no spin targets around, he would either stack the jungle for his team or farm easily.
Got one.
Normally,
Pag may
Blade
pasok,
Fury
liga
had a
dito.
fairly long cooldown for a regular ability. Juggernaut roamed the map. By doing this, they gave him plenty of time
Last player standing.
ready.
Chicks.
This playstyle was good at ensuring that no hero
30 seconds left.
far behind, but it wasn't great at definitively securing. Often, DK would find themselves overall behind when coming out of the laning stage. However, that was nothing to worry about, as now stage 2 of Juggernaut support came into action. At TI4, the best way to get money quickly was to break down towers and kill Roshan, as both objectives were very valuable. Spin helped clear creep waves quickly, and the healing ward protected DK while they were breaking down towers and taking early Roshan kills. Getting big objectives as soon as possible allowed DK to stabilize the lineup and make sure all their cores were in fighting shape. Then they slowed the game down, and Juggernaut entered his final 3rd stage. While the 3 big cores were farming up, Lano tried his best to fill the gaps and find enough money for an item.
My
He
ult's ready.
valued this item so much that he would only buy brown boots and nothing
Reloading.
else before rushing into it. This may
For
seem
you.
a little weird, as it left Lano with no way to but he didn't care about that. As a core, he was
Good.
worry about staying alive.
Initiated.
So he could establish damage by attacking. As a support, it didn't matter if all he did
Turret
was
placing alarm.
Last player standing.
and die.
Spike down
We
B.
spent a lot of time talking about how Juggernaut could get additional
Caught
attacks
one.
during Omni-Stage. However, even if you didn't use this element, devastating by
Waste of time,
Last
match.
round in the half.
Omni-Slash was capable of hitting anyone, including opposing cores. Lanham's number one priority was to create those circumstances, and that included getting Aghanim's scepter as quickly as possible. After finishing Aghanim's, he would build a Blink Dagger, which offered much easier positioning for the ultimate, and a Diffuser Blade for additional utility and secondary resource damage.
We can't
during
keep doing the
ultimate.
same things.
As for his skill build,
Waste of time,
Lanham
match.
prioritized Blade Fury and Healing
ഈ
Ward,
നായിന്റെ
but
മക്കള്.
still got that single early point into Blade Dance.
What's
By the
this?
time Juggernaut finished his Aghanim scepter,
Reloading.
the rest of DK had farmed enough, and they would start being more aggressive. As already mentioned,
Enemy spotted
Juggernaut's
mid.
whole job was to run in
എന്തോന്നാടാ ഇവന്മാര്?
a simple strategy that was absolutely
I know exactly where you are.
DK used this strategy.
One down.
Winning
Our
all
spike
of
carrier
those
is
games.
dead.
The only
Spike
match
down,
was
mid.
against VG Gaming on the
Last player standing.
which would eventually carry VG all the way into the grand finals. This sounds like an absurdist joke, but Team DK found great success with it. For the sake of
Switching
completeness, I
sides.
also mentioned that Fnatic
Match
tried a
point.
similar style of Juggernaut,
Just
but
let
they
them
used him
try
in
to catch
offlane
me.
instead. This didn't work as well. In my opinion, the big mistake they made was delaying the Aghanim scepter for too long by actually buying stat-based items on the hero. This left him a bit tankier, but unable to do damage. Maybe they felt that Juggernaut had to have an impact outside of his ultimate due to his higher farming position on the team, which was sensible, but not as
Turret
effective.
out.
Overall, Juggernaut wasn't very popular at TI4. He was only picked for 8 games total,
Here.
and the majority of those came from a single team. But that team got a lot of unique value out of the hero, and Juggernaut ended
Here.
the tournament with a very respectable 75% win rate. Hey, sorry for interrupting, but I just wanted to thank you so much for watching the video. If you've
Here.
enjoyed it so far, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and maybe leave a comment. You know, it always helps out a lot, and we really depend on your support.
What?
Calling my
Spike planted.
And I'm not joking here. We have an output of 1 video a month going forward, and at that rate, we really rely on you.
One enemy remaining.
Sustainable. So we really
Finally.
support us even more by becoming a
ഒരു point
member
എങ്കിലും
here
കിട്ടി.
on YouTube. By doing so, you also gain access to the next videos in the series, which
Please fucking diffuse.
our range of videos coming very soon. And then, of course, you gain access to bonus materials, versions of the
Was that
videos,
important?
advertising, and get to participate in the whole community interactions.
Oh,
Like,
this
for
is a
example,
much
currently
better
we've got a poll
trajectory.
going on where we decide on what hero we should tackle next. Anyway, let's get back to the video. I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's hear what else Juggernaut has been up to. The year following TI4 was one filled with tumultuous change.
Placing
As a whole
sentry.
started being reworked and had various new mechanics and items introduced.
Alarm bot
Out of
out.
the new items, none had particular relevance to Juggernaut. While Moonshot had some late game potential, it was too expensive to be bought in an average game. Silver Edge offered an upgrade option for Shadowblade, but at the time Silver Edge was built using a Shadowblade
them.
of the same range, which was an awful combination of Juggernaut received various changes during this time period. Here's a summary. His agility was increased significantly, but his agility gain and base armor rate decreased to compensate for that. This gave him more power early, but slightly less. Fury had its mana cost reduced at higher
Spike
levels,
down B.
which made it one of the very rare
Spike's
abilities
here.
Please.
One enemy remaining.
mana cost scaling. Things that has the ability
Harder.
Legendary also had its low level cooldown and high level cooldown.
I feel the strain.
Healing Void had its mana cost and movement speed slightly reduced. Blade Dance was rescaled to be more powerful at lower levels. This change was fairly significant as it made Blade Dance a very
Placing sentry.
efficient ability. A 20% chance at a 200% critical strike is mathematically the same as
Placing alarm
20%
bot.
damage increase to all attacks. All it took to get this 20% damage boost was a single skill point, which offered a lot of freedom in how to approach the character's skill list. Consider as well the 35% crit chance, aka 35% damage increase, which was incredibly high. It may be a bit hard to conceptualize how much damage this actually was, so here's a comparison. A level 2 Phantom Assassin
Explain.
Spike down mid.
100 Sky, 100 Sky.
Spike spotted.
Finally, Omni slash no longer mini stuff.
Enemy spotted.
All of
Mid.
these changes push Juggernaut more
ആളിയാ
Down mid. One enemy remaining.
for Juggernaut, as her cold embrace was capable of completely shutting down all Omni slash damage. Ghost Scepter and Yules could do the same, but Winter Wyvern was exceptionally good at it because she could also protect allies instead of protecting herself. Couple that with Winter Wyvern being a very
Okay,
good and popular
come
Spike
back.
spotted.
you
Mid.
can see why she posed
Is everyone's
the problem.
tech still working? Double check it, please.
6.83 and 6.84 through Dota for a loop. They were the most
മൂന്നെണ്ണം
drastic
കിട്ടി.
change to Dota.
ഓക്കെ ഇതും കൂടെ ജയിച്ചാൽ ആക്ച്വലി വർത്ത് ഇറ്റ് മാച്ച്.
This new environment forced players into experimenting and relearning
Turret
how
out.
to play the game. As the meta developed and we entered TI5,
Alarm bot
the most
out.
popular cores became casters like Luna, the Shock, Oak, and Pain, and physical cores with powerful spells like Gyrocopter, Shadow Fiend, and Razor. Either way, it was important that the hero could clear out large creep stacks quickly and offered some early game fighting power. Juggernaut met both of those criteria. Blade Fury offered early power and could be used to clear stacks. Unfortunately, the three most popular picks in International 5 were the aforementioned Luna, Queen of Pain, and Gyrocopter, all three of which had ultimates that
Bomb grenade out.
the matchup spread. Powerful heroes usually doesn't bode well
I've got your
for
trail.
performance.
Shadows
Some teams were fine. The main argument of Juggernaut was that, in theory, he would fit into that second group of cores that I mentioned a second ago. Their itemization usually followed a basic
Bitch low, bitch low.
early survivability, which practically always meant a ring of action.
Both side, both
and
side.
sometimes a
Nahil na yung bitch.
One enemy remaining.
Ay. Ay.
Oh, let's go. 4-4. Please defuse.
Depending on the specific hero, they sometimes also purchase some cheap
Oh.
iron tools.
Worth it. ഒരു പോയിന്റ് കിട്ടി. Worth it. This game went from 0 value to 100% value. ഇതും കൂടെ ജയിച്ചാൽ ബോണസ്.
Had to do was keep them alive,
Sudden
and give them
death.
a bit of additional
എന്റെ കാല് വേദന എടുക്കുന്നു.
This logic was then applied to Juggernaut. As a result, his item build shifted away entirely from Aghanim's Scepter. Instead, players bought in the stat-based carry style. Face boots, Pullman's shield, and Ring of Aquila for the early game, and either jumps of endurance for even more early strength, or Yasha into either
Alarm bot
Yasha
out.
or
Recalling my boss.
Yasha.
Out of charges.
Juggernaut synergized well with agility
Placing
based
sentry.
item builds.
Bot
As
coming
due to
back.
his low base attack time, he would effectively get
Bot
more
coming
attack
back.
speed out of agility than other agility heroes.
Placing
From
sentry.
here, it was either an Eye of Skadi or a Skull Bash.
Placing
Some
alarm
players
bot.
would also opt for Master Niners along the way, and one time we even saw an early Battle Fury. These two items in particular had some fun peak potential with Omni Slash, and led to what was, in my mind, his best performance of the tournament. Juggernaut had shifted into a simple, straightforward physical damage position 1 role. His job was to get money, build big items, and then attack opponents during team fights until they are dead. He was usually played in the safe lane, protected by supports. But Juggernaut was strong.
That's done.
At least Gyrocopter did it. You could leave him alone in the lane. It would be fine. Teams treated
Fire
Juggernaut,
in the hole.
but
120.
Spike planted.
Race 120. Benjo, Eljo.
not to get close to the
Last player standing.
exposed. His only escape was Blade Fury, which
Okay,
blocks
at
spells.
least.
But he could just ignore that and attack him instead. When Juggernaut's supports were rotating around the map, he would frequently have to deal with getting ganked, twisting
Let's
the laning
bundle.
dynamic in such a way that Juggernaut
Okay, GG's. Juggernaut is 4-5.
defensively to stay alive in those critical moments. This manifested in his skill build in a unique fashion. I actually can't tell you what his skill build was, because he didn't really have one. Best practice was to level up whichever ability was needed in the moment. Have a look at the screen for a moment. Yes, actually look at the screen. You can put me back on the other monitor or in your pocket in a minute or two. Juggernaut was played 6 times at TI5. Here are all the skill builds that were used. As you can see, there was no real pattern to it. Blade Fury at level 1 was guaranteed, as the magic immunity offered by it was indispensable. But other than that, it varied on a game-by-game basis. Players would often get early points into stats, as they were the best option for short-term survivability in a gang scenario.
Match found.
Single early points into Blade Dance and Healing Ward were common, but by no means mandatory. His mid-game skill builds were just as weird, with players opting for whatever they needed in that particular moment, whether that be crits for farming speed, Healing Ward for pushing, or stats for safety. Okay, you can look away.
PUBG Mobile, what the shit?
He did not do well at TI5. Only 6 picks total, and he lost 4 of those games. Weirdly, I don't think Juggernaut was to blame for that. His abilities were strong, and he had a lot of potential. But the specific left me with the impression that players weren't really looking to play Juggernaut, and instead were trying to imitate the best carry of the tournament, Gyrocopter. The players weren't really playing towards Juggernaut's strength.
Oh yeah, Shinigami Bachan innanalle second episode. Tic tac tic te imani tic tac toki toki. Oh, പെട്ടെന്ന് കണ്ടിട്ടാണ് എനിക്ക് anime ആണ്.
Still incredibly powerful.
എന്നിട്ടാണ് മുഷോക്ക് സൺഡേ നാളെ മൺഡേ ആളെയാ എനിക്ക് മടുത്ത്.
That the new items he was using
why are jobs so fucking tiresome? Like സത്യം പറയാലോ, like ഇത്രയും എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായിട്ടില്ല. Why do people make jobs tedious? I mean that's why they call jobs, but still.
It was a matter of him unfortunately being pigeonholed a bit. Finally, it didn't help that his matchups against the top heroes were so lackluster. While the hero in a vacuum was strong, that didn't matter if he wasn't usable against the top dogs, and this was likely the main reason why he didn't see much play. Between the International 5 and 6, another big set of new items were added to Dota, the most important of which was Iron Talon. Iron Talon changed how Dota was played,
Match found.
moving it more towards the modern individualistic style of free farming cores. Stacking and clearing stacks became less important as more heroes could farm the jungle early. This in turn shifted more emphasis towards pushing out lanes and clearing creep waves quickly. Juggernaut himself received hardly any changes. Blade Fury had its damage slightly increased at higher levels, which was nice but not particularly significant. Healing Ward now initially followed Juggernaut around when it was summoned. This change didn't matter for competitive play, as the ward was always carefully micromanaged anyways. And that's it. TI6 rolled around, and having received only minor changes, Juggernaut rose to the top of the pack and became one of the most popular and powerful carries of the tournament. He was played by a wide range of teams and saw significant success both during the group stages and the main event. Let's tackle the obvious question right away. What changed? Why was he so good now? While Juggernaut did get buffed, that wasn't why. The changes weren't significant enough for that. He also wasn't using any of the new items that were added. Instead, it was the environment around Juggernaut that had changed to accommodate him better. The most popular cores at TI6 were Mirana, Batrider, Faceless Void, and Timbersaw. Blade Fury allowed Juggernaut to completely dodge anything Timbersaw wanted to do to him, and Omnislash was one of the few abilities that could actually kill Timbersaw. Also, while Timbersaw had his Chakram out, he couldn't attack, which meant he couldn't deal with the healing ward. Batrider was a tremendously powerful laner, except his entire strategy of spamming sticky napalm didn't work against Blade Fury. Faceless Void would get slapped around by Juggernaut during the laning stage because Blade Dance enhanced his damage output too much, and Omnislash was one of the few abilities that could threaten him during a Chronosphere. Finally, Mirana was the big cat of
back out
TI6.
to the field.
Her Aghanim scepter
Let's
was
go.
incredibly powerful
So many
and
new
offered
toys I want to
tremendous
try
magic
out.
damage. If Mirana connected with a long-range sacred arrow, she could easily deal 1500 burst damage to a single target, and an additional 600 to anything in a huge radius around herself. Her farming speed and mobility were unmatched, and she worked excellently with the top supports of the
Tik tak
tournament.
tekute, nanai meva,
Elder
tik
Titan
tak
and
dogi
Ogre
dogi,
Magic, all of which allowed for
tik
easy
tak
setup
futari,
into her deadly combo equip.
tik tak
Particularly Shadow Demon was
na
brutal, as a disruption meant imminent death. Except, Juggernaut didn't care about any of that. Blade Fury could be used to prevent even a perfectly timed sacred arrow.
What the?
Multiple enemies A.
Spike down A.
The Juggernaut matched up poorly to the top pick.
One enemy remaining.
Oh, in the morning, well playing. ഇവരൊക്കെ.
Teams started playing Juggernaut differently than before. It became a priority
got
to
the
make
spike.
sure he had a good lane and could farm early. If that meant going mid, then he went mid. If that meant the safe or the off lane,
Play
then
together,
that's where
guys.
he was.
Play together.
Last
Oh,
player standing.
no, no.
But instead he moved to enable his power. This worked much better, and he pretty much his item and skill build changed in accordance with this new understanding of the hero. Poor Man's Shield,
That
an item
Cypher
that
wants to
provided a
watch us?
100%
That's
chance to
him.
block
We
20
don't
damage
hide.
of every attack, became the starting choice, with the team gifting Juggernaut regeneration on top of that. From here it was similar to what we saw before, Face Boots, Aquila, Yasha. However, there was one big change. Battle Fury became a common pickup after the Yasha to enable his farming. Then he would upgrade into Manta style and buy a Blink
I'll show
Dagger.
her who's a real
Blink
genius
Dagger
is.
gave him even more farming speed and reintroduced that instant kill potential we saw at TI4. Yasha, Battle
Watching
Fury,
here.
and Blink Dagger
Careful.
combined offered a
Spike
crazy
there.
amount of
I
farming
got the spike.
prowess, and that became one of his redeeming characteristics. He had many options to choose depending on the game's circumstances. The important takeaway is that Juggernaut was given his own
Reloading.
item build, an item build designed
Okay.
his strength also became
Oh, in the morning. Oh, ഇവൻ എന്നെ പോലത്തെ ഇരിക്കുന്നു. Oh, in the morning. Oh.
as possible and invest single value cover going out. From here, they would again decide based on the game whether they wanted to level up
Pardon,
healing,
Dervish.
blade or stance.
There.
That was of course always maxed out as quickly as possible.
Last player standing.
Juggernaut had really grown into his clear sense of turning
അളയാ ഞാൻ useless.
DPS carry. His unique defensive profile was very valuable and offered important reliability. I also don't want to undersell his damage. Blade Dance was an and Omni Slash
Useless അടേ ഞാൻ.
as heroes rise in popularity, their counters also become more prominent.
You know what?
Juggernaut
Fuck.
himself was benefiting
Fuck
from
it, I
this,
ball.
but counters to him also existed. Sven in particular posed a huge issue, as Warcry not only protected Sven's team from physical damage, making Omni Slash ineffective, but Sven also did enough damage himself to cleanly kill Juggernaut
Stay
during
safe.
Blade Fury. However, those counters weren't chosen frequently enough to deter teams from
Blocking
picking
sight.
Juggernaut. In conclusion, Juggernaut was
Enemy spotted A.
6.
Reloading.
Reloading.
Making him the 11th most hero.
Placing
Not
sentry.
only did he match up well into the heroes above him, he had refined his skill and item build into a unique style that was effective against most of the cast.
Turret destroyed.
Shortly after the International 6 concluded,
Here.
Juggernaut received 2 nerfs.
My ult's ready.
His base damage was reduced by 2, and Healing Wolf had its mana cost increased. While the damage begins. Points may not seem like much. Juggernaut already didn't have great starting damage, so this change stung quite a bit. Then 7.0
Placing
was
alarm
released
bot.
and brought the talent tree to Dota 2. Juggernaut was one of the beneficiaries of the first batch of talents. While his weren't the best in the game, they were more than solid. And most importantly, they provided exactly what he needed: survivability and or physical damage. This resulted in Juggernaut receiving additional nerfs. Healing Ward now had a 75 golden experience bounty, which was a genuinely huge amount.
Turret out.
75 golden experience for a summoner that comes out every fight and dies in a single hit is absolutely devastating and made the ability way more difficult.
Calling my boss.
Frequently slam the gold down, have it die immediately, but still benefit
Last
from the
round
overwhelm.
before the
And
switch.
that was the fine outcome.
Last round to use
But
our
now,
creds and
useless
abilities.
lah.
Don't
only
waste your
be fast
firepower.
when necessary. Unfortunately, Juggernaut came into TI7 in an overall worse position than he was before. His playstyle didn't change from the previous tournament. He was still the aggressive position 1 carry who could enable early pushes that he had been. Juggernaut's skill build remained the same, although his items slightly changed, moving away from Battle Fury and instead frequently incorporating a Diffuser Blade. Diffuser Blade offered a significant agility bonus and recently had its mana burn buffed to 50 per attack, which was a significant amount. It synergized nicely with Juggernaut, as he could still utilize the mana burn while attacking during Blade Fury and Omni Slash.
Are they committing to this?
The environment of the tournament has gone in an unfavorable direction. The best picks were heroes with powerful disables, like Earthshaker,
Get out of my way.
while Juggernaut's inbuilt magic allowed him to perform reasonably well against those, he didn't offer any lockdown himself.
Here.
The Diffuser Blade was an attempt to remedy that, but it wasn't enough to make up for Juggernaut not having an inbuilt slow. Some of Juggernaut's old worst enemies have returned as well. Lycan and Sven were single picks. We already talked about why Sven was a Lycan as Juggernaut. Lycan posed similar issues, but he was even more problematic. His summons easily appeared.
I know exactly where you
Ultimately
are.
combined with his economical freedom, offered way more damage than was needed to overwhelm Juggernaut.
One enemy
whether he
remaining.
was
Placing
in
alarm
Blade
bot.
Fury or not. Not only had Juggernaut been nerfed, but the environment of the tournament was strongly hostile towards him. So we only saw scattered views. Surprisingly, one of those picks came in the last game of the Grand Finals by Team Liquid. They used them as a and carry, designed to burst down the long-term fight-orientated cores from Newbie, Death Prophet, and Venomancer. This worked
Switching
reasonably well,
sides.
but he still struggled with
I get
the
a drop?
overwhelming quantity of
Can I get
disabilities
this?
on the Radiant side. The game
Can I get
eventually
this?
entered an anxiety-inducing stalemate in the mid lane that lasted multiple minutes. To break it, Liquid took a huge risk and used Juggernaut as bait.
Это был бейт. Дабл дэмэдж, надо его ломать. Ой, дабл дэмэдж, надо забрать, поймали. Миракл забрал дабл дэмэдж, Миракл в киксе, Миракл надо постараться убить, поставили варды, Миракл надо как-то продолжить бег, Миракл проблема у него огромная, прыгает жа,
Remember when Dota used to be, energetic? Now it's just, green.
Sentry.
Not because I grown old. It's just the game doesn't care anymore. It's like,
Team Liquid сносит в первую сторону, Team Liquid тут же должны переместиться на низ. Миракл сейчас появится, Матуба возвращается, БКБ у него закончится, Миракл пошел, в ультимейте, замолки, Миракл, зарезал одного, Миракл,
nice shot, nice shot.
Миракл продолжает, Миракл просто бежит под хайграунд, Миракл
О.
цепляет на трипл 3, надо степузить, диффузор туда, 3 закончились, не были, у него диффузор туда, ничего не сделал, Майнконтрол, еще один фраг, это минус 3, ГГ,
Recalling my bot.
Liquid чемпионы интернешнла, Миракл, просто нереально, фантастика!
Last player standing.
Ah!
Despite ending on an exhilarating high note, the International 7 was a step back for Juggernaut. He was picked 12 times in 5 of those games.
Spike
While this
planted.
placed him comfortably in the middle of the pack,
No charges
it was a
left.
far cry from the top spot he had previously been. It's unlikely that the corporate hero weared in yours succeed. Juggernaut was a simple hero that played a simple role. He was good at what he did, but his power was less important than his environment. And at this moment, the environment wasn't in his favor.
They look like us, but are they us? I have so many questions.
And with it came a change that devastated Juggernaut's solo laning capabilities. Poor Man's Shield was removed from the game. This directly impacted his ability to be aggressive during the laning stage. Blade Fury was a powerful
Placing
ability.
sentry.
It protected from
എന്തോന്നടി
huge
എപ്പോഴും
amounts of damage. However, to deal damage, Blade Fury required Juggernaut to get close to his opponents, and this gave them plenty of opportunity to simply attack him. While this may sound silly, it's still, to this day, one of the best ways of dealing with Juggernaut. Blade Fury was unlikely to kill on its own, and 5 seconds of attacking from multiple heroes hurts. Pullman Shield protected Juggernaut during that period, and its removal significantly reduced his laning potential. Juggernaut also received some direct changes. His talents were rerollable, and they still fairly fast while spinning. This made it much easier to find a good moment to start regenerating health. Blade
70
armor was increased by 1. Unfortunately, a huge hit came to Blade Dance. Its critical
spike planted
increased from 200% to 100%. This was a significant nerf. Although
last player standing.
Whether or not Juggernaut as a whole was overpowered, Blade definitely was. It was much stronger.
Match point.
That team is only as good as their skill. And that has to beat. Reloading.
7. Let's not delay the unfortunate truth. The international aid was an absolute disaster for Juggernaut. He only saw play in 2 games and lost both. In them, he was played in exactly the same style and with the same item and skill build that we had seen before. So, what went wrong? Why was he bad? The problem was again his environment. If we go through the top picks of the international,
Careful.
Vengeful Spirit swapped his Omni Slash target to safety.
Get out of my way!
Here. His damage. Mirana leaped away. Wraith King didn't mind dying to his ultimate. Reaver ran away.
Last player standing.
Ursa absorbed the slashes. The Phantom Lancer created an army.
The hunt begins!
More hostile fields.
Satchel out. Satchel out.
Rigid dual lanes.
Spike planted.
Oh, aduru.
The open map movements we saw at to enable Juggernaut. Farming and late game potential. Resources became available.
Attackers win.
Without Battle Fury, Juggernaut was a mid-tier speed farmer. Mercury cleared creep waves quickly, but it wasn't particularly effective against jungle camps, and Juggernaut struggled even more when killing large ancient stacks. That's why he would often buy a farming item, although that delayed his fighting potential. Such a delay would have been fine for another hero, but Juggernaut didn't have the same late game power as other carries. Blade Fury was strong early, but almost became a liability in the later stages, so much so that Juggernaut would frequently find himself buying BKB anyway. Omni had some standing, but also a large portion of its damage was set physical damage, which meant it would fall off significantly towards the later stages of the game. Seeing as Juggernaut had firmly settled into his role as a main character,
match found.
Really?
That he couldn't overcome on his own.
Really? എനിക്ക് യൂസുള്ള ഒരു ഷിറ്റും കിട്ടിയില്ല in this Pokemon Showcase
thing. And they decided it was time to rework Omni Slash. At its core, the ability stayed the same, but the old system of slashes and attacks was replaced with a much simpler and more intuitive implementation. The new Omni Slash had a set duration, during which Juggernaut attacked his targets with increased attack speed and damage. He would still bounce between nearby enemies and it still made him invincible. On a surface level, it was the same ability, but it was weaker early and way more powerful late, because it uses actual attacks as a basis for its damage. Juggernaut could scale into the late game now. Omni Slash was a genuinely devastating ability. His Aghanim Scepter also stayed effectively the same, now increasing Omni Slash's duration instead of slash count. The patches that followed were all about nerfing Juggernaut. Omni Slash was tuned down a lot from its initial implementation, Healing Ward had its movement speed decreased, and Blade Fury saw a reduction in its damage. Independent from that, one of his favorite items, Ring of Aquila, was removed from the game. It wasn't all bad though. Juggernaut had his base agility drastically increased, although his damage and armor were reduced to make up for that. He was still left with more attack speed than before, which worked especially well with his new ultimate. Up to this point, Juggernaut had always been an early to mid-game carry. The longer a game would go, the weaker he became when compared to other similar heroes, which is why he was initially used in a pushing-centered playstyle. His new ultimate changed this dynamic entirely. While he was still strong during the laning stage and was happy to participate in early pushes, he now had a league game drop where Blade Fury wasn't effective anymore and Omni Slash wasn't online yet, because he didn't have enough items. In turn, he gained significant late game power. This trade-off made sense, as the pushing strategies we saw in the early years had died off at this point
Where
of
are
Dust
you?
development. Building strong on the monetary
Revealing
reward
area.
that they used to have, and instead gold was primarily earned through map control and farming. After his rework, Juggernaut fit better into this environment, as he could cut through anything with Omni Slash as long as he had a network lead. This actually changed some of the Njan used to be a counter to Juggernaut, as Warcry
Deploying drone.
However, the new Omni Slash often didn't care, and quickly sliced
Charge your hearts.
Juggernaut had
അതൊക്കെ calm and cool ആയിട്ട് കളിച്ചാൽ മതി. Calm and
which is when Sven would usually overwhelm him. Juggernaut didn't want to fight him, he instead focused on farming.
Satchel out.
As a result, Juggernaut came to be considered a counter to Sven, which was incredibly convenient, as Sven was a strong pick of
Gone.
another top player
Find you.
Juggernaut dealt well with was Lifestealer. Lifestealer also had
Scanning ahead.
Blind your fear.
He was all about closing distance and sticking to his target while
Cool.
he punches them in the face and heals himself
Collected.
with
Shock dart.
Fortunately,
calm,
without any of
cool, collected.
Three.
Who am I? അതാണ് ഞാൻ. Oh fuck. ഞാനൊരു calm, cool, collected individual. Calm, cool. Oh.
Juggernaut usually had to have a lead. He didn't have the tools to play from a losing position, as Omni Slash
ഞാൻ പണ്ടേ ഒരു calm, cool and collected individual.
secured momentum early.
Oh, Fade is വെറും calm, cool, collected individual.
Revealing area.
Also manifests from the
Take flight.
The backpack and the TP score inventory slot.
Shock dart.
But late game players benefited the most. As they
Ah.
became more powerful with more money available, buyback became a fixture of games.
Cool. Oh, what?
You had to do it twice. Juggernaut wasn't good at that. Omni Slash wasn't good at it. But once it was,
Calm, cool and
without
collected.
it, Juggernaut wasn't as strong as the heroes. He simply couldn't do it.
പണ്ടേ ഒരു
Which was had gotten buffed and became a frequent item heroes.
Scanning ahead.
By aggressive force,
Found them. Defeated.
calm and cool
really entrenched
as usual.
Take flight.
Juggernaut had no way to
Collected.
The International 9 was give and take for Juggernaut, resulting in
Stay down. Get out of my way.
the teams that opted for him would usually pair him with a second hero to reinforce his lackluster mid-game
No more.
New stage
choice, and the 9 had a host of options. Power in particular, as it amounted to a free back
Now it is calm. Oh.
farming and offering significant
Okay.
fighting.
Calm.
Synergized with Juggernaut's items.
There are no accidents. Ugwe പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്.
Scanning
Ugwe.
ahead.
There are no accidents.
First choice. Then defuse
There they are.
or straight into understanding. When an additional farming item was needed, Maelstrom and Mjolnir became the items of
Fire
choice.
in the hole.
Butterfly, Abyssal Blade, and Monkey King Bomb rounded out his item set. For short work as a late game option, which would let him perform the going up against Buyback. But
There are no accidents. Fuck.
and hence wasn't top. As
There are no accidents, okay. There are no accidents. There are Uguay. Oh, ഇങ്ങോട്ടൊരു വഴി ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ലേ? അത് നോക്കണമായിരുന്നു. ഇതെല്ലാം ഒരേ മാപ്പല്ലേ കഴിഞ്ഞ ടെക്നിക്കലി ലേഔട്ടൊക്കെ ഭയങ്കര. Bye bye.
How he had changed. OG lanes Ana on Juggernaut in his strong
Bring them down.
protected by Grimstone. Ana as he
Nasi goreng baby. Fuck! അതൊരു അടിപൊളി കൊളാട്രൽ കില്ലായിരുന്നു. ഞാൻ കളക്കിലേക്ക് കളിച്ചിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ.
to rotate heals into the mid to salvage. Ana first moves into the jungle, then moves bottom to help Magnus push down the tier 1 tower. This opens up the bottom side of the map. He immediately uses this as a farming space. His crate clearing is greatly
Neutralized.
What? ഹെഡ് അല്ലായിരുന്നു. There are no Uguays. തലവേദന.
Any gang efforts
Shut down.
ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞില്ലേ there are no Uguays.
Scanning ahead. There they are.
sole occupant of the bottom half of the map. He used himself with his team to reapply and
80 damage easy. Support life.
he is comfortably reading the network charts and even starts fighting here and there. However, the first encounter he involves himself in still ends on a dicey note, where he's forced to spin and TP out. Don't think he went back to the base. Juggernaut never has to go back to the base. A quick healing ward and he's good to go again. Monkey King lands a beautiful ultimate to secure 3 kills for OG, and then it's time for Roshan. The Radiant challenges the attempt, but gets run over as Ana leads a violent charge into their team. After finishing Roshan, OG ramps up a push in the bottom lane. The fight starts out in Hadaya's favor, but they are unable to deal the damage needed to break through Nubi's defenses. The uncontrollable nature of Omni Slash doesn't work out for OG, as the ability bounces to the side and kills Earthshaker instead of one of the cores. Without it, Juggernaut doesn't do enough damage to take Sven down quickly. OG retreats and goes back to farming. Juggernaut finishes up his Eye of Skadi. Shortly after, another fight brews. Treant Protector is caught in the Radiant's jungle and both teams take the challenge. Juggernaut Omni slashes Enchantress, however she quickly uses Yules on herself and the ultimate goes wasted. Undeterred, Ana runs at anyone he can see and swings at them. Newbie responds with a beautiful Earthshaker Sven combo play, but due to the tanky item builds on OG's side, it doesn't take them very far.
ഈ ഡെയിലി ഗ്രൈൻഡ് ജീവിതം സീൻ ഞാൻ ഒരു കാര്യം ചെയ്യുന്നു വാലറന്റ് മാത്രം കളിച്ചിട്ട് നിർത്താം ഈ 2 കളിയും കൂടെ കഴിഞ്ഞ സ്ട്രീം നിർത്താം എനിക്ക് മുഷോക്ക് ഡാൻസ് കാണണം സോ പ്രയോറിറ്റീസ്
they are forced to retreat as Ember Spirit is farming the bottom.
Match found
by Juggernaut. However, by himself Ana can't do much and tries to disengage. Newbie moves in and this is their opportunity. They trap Juggernaut with a fissure. Ana quickly spins and places a healing ward out of vision and out of range. Newbie sees how quickly Juggernaut is healing and that backup is coming, and they are forced to flee. Juggernaut never has to miss a beat, and within seconds he's back to full health. OG takes a moment to regroup, finishes up the butterfly on Juggernaut, and takes the next
Wherever they run, I will
Then
find
the
them.
time to push bottom has come. Seb isolates Sven, who is quickly chopped to pieces. Then Ana makes sure his team stays alive while they break down the bottom and mid barracks. Newbie tries their best and takes one final fight.
墨勇要冲过来，但是晕的时间太短了，直接一个无敌斩斩2个，带着猛犸 buff 的无敌斩斩掉了对面双核，再进泉水又入泉了，有奶酪能不能吃出来？最后是在泉水当中完成3杀，恭喜欧 G 战队啊！2-0。 比欧三的2局可以说是展现出了绝对的。
In this game, Ana managed to build a lead and maintained it, and then used it to crush anyone who crossed his path. While impressive, this was only possible because OG bought him the time needed to farm up. OG clearly had faith in the hero, as they even used him during the main event like in the game we just saw. They won all of their games while playing Juggernaut, so the problem wasn't that Juggernaut was bad, but more that he was hard to use and difficult to find an opportunity for. Other teams also weren't stupid, and they knew to play aggressively when going up against him. When Juggernaut managed to build a lead, he could easily run away with the game, as he annihilated anyone he came across. But when he fell behind, he wasn't very effective, and didn't have good tools to bounce back. Nonetheless, TI9 was definitely a step up from what we had seen before. 18 picks, 13 bans, an overall 16% contest rate, by no means...
ചേടേ ഇന്ന് കുറേ വരുന്നുണ്ടല്ലോ. ഹീറോ ക്ലാസ് റൂം വന്ന് മുഷോക്ക് തെൻസയും വരുമല്ലോ എന്റെ മോനെ. ഓക്കെ, ഇന്ന് ആക്ച്വലി 8 ആയതേ ഉള്ളൂ അല്ലേ? 9 വരെയായിരുന്നു. ആക്ച്വലി ഇനോവാട്ട് ഞാൻ നെവർ മൈൻഡ്, ഈ 2 ഗെയിമും കൂടെ കഴിഞ്ഞ് എന്തെങ്കിലും സ്ട്രീം നിർത്താം. ഡെയിലീസ് പിന്നെ ഞാൻ ഓഫ്. നാളെ ഓഫീസ് ഉണ്ട്, എനിക്ക് വയ്യ. I should start look.
His base attributes were also improved, gaining more native movement speed, attack speed, and attack damage. Omni Slash was buffed to provide bonus attack speed as well, and its Aghanim Scepter effect was reworked. Now Juggernaut gained a new ability after buying Aghanim Scepter, Swift Slash. Swift Slash was a smaller version of Omni Slash. It looked exactly the same and shared all of its effects, but it had a much shorter duration and cooldown. Swift Slash offered Juggernaut a way to use his ultimate for a burst of damage, as a gap closer, or for a moment of invulnerability, without needing to commit his actual ultimate and its lengthy cooldown. In late 2020, 7.28 was released, and with it came Swift Blink and Aghanim's Charge. Swift Blink was aggressive. Juggernaut had always liked Blink Dagger, but unfortunately, it was an item that did nothing for his physical
approach.
As that element of the hero became more important.
Scanning ahead.
Swift Blink fixed that. He could now buy a Blink Dagger, and then eventually upgrade it into an incredibly powerful late-game agility item. Juggernaut's Aghanim's Shard was also quite powerful and quickly became a popular choice. It enhanced Blade Fury, increasing Juggernaut's movement speed while spinning.
Okay, hey, for the calm, cool, collected place.
Clean.
Clean.
Damage. One of the main Juggernaut
cool.
was that eventually there would come a point in each game where Blade Fury did less damage than Snow, but he still needed to use it for the magic. Usually at that stage, Blade Fury damage had fallen off as well, which left Juggernaut spinning while not doing that. Even worse, he would leave himself exposed to the attack. Just some revealing area to the Juggernaut despite having features magically didn't have those downsides. His new Aghanim's Shard, his level 20 talent, significantly addressed that issue. While 1 attack per second was less than Juggernaut would normally be able to do, it was by no means a slow attack rate. Blade Fury was no longer a liability past the winning stage. He still had become a genuine threat, even in the late stage. This effect was so strong, it even received a massive nerf, reducing the damage of attack stun during Blade Fury by 25%. Overall, it was very beneficial for Juggernaut, and this made the old sieging style of pushing
Scanning ahead.
as it wasn't worth the effort anymore.
There they are.
Cool.
On the second kill.
Mahi. Mihi.
Sleep, brother.
In a strict method. At TI-10, Juggernaut's playstyle remained mostly the same as we had seen before. He was still positioned.
Get out of my way!
Stage 3.
And he was still best friends with me. One change was the emergence of and attempted to give Juggernaut the early fighting power he needed in the modern era. Echo Saber provided some nice early stats and mana regeneration, along with a helpful slowing effect that synergized well with
actually ideally I could
the spin even without Maelstrom.
cool അതാണ് സംഭവം. I was not cool. I was not cool.
Back into the
Oh, അതൊരു cool moment ആയിരുന്നു.
although Senshin Yasha had gotten more popular received various buffs over the years that simply made
The hunt begins.
I'm not cool, man. I'm not cool.
generation and nice fantastic qualities for
അയ്യേ ആ ഹെഡ് അല്ലായിരുന്നു. ഞാൻ cool ആയിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ അതൊരു ഹെഡ് ആയിരുന്നു. Look at that. So cool. Oh, so cool escape.
since 7.26 and 7.27 respectively.
Get him, wingman.
But Juggernaut
ഞാൻ cool ആയിരുന്നു. 1 HP plus.
healing more losses.
Because I'm feeling cool.
Iron Shard was also a frequent choice, although at the time it could only be
Because I was cool while spraying.
My ultimate ready.
അവിടെ അങ്ങോട്ട് എക്സിറ്റ് ആയിരുന്നു, എളുപ്പമായിരുന്നു എനിക്ക് പെട്ടെന്ന്. Look at that cool moment.
10 minutes into the game at the latest.
എന്റെ റെയിന കൂളായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ ആ പീക്ക് എടുത്തേനെ. റെയിന കൂളല്ല.
Afterwards, the game settled into farming again.
എനിക്ക് ഒരു ഗെയിമും കൂടെ കളിക്കണോ?
Respawned 8 to 11 later, at which point the first happened. The second Roshan
ഒരു കാര്യം ഇങ്ങനെ പോവാ.
would always be heavily miserable for Juggernaut. But he
അതൊരു കൂൾ ട്രാക്കിംഗ്.
but
പക്ഷെ ഞാൻ ഒരു കൂൾ അമ്പ്. Cool.
Get out of my way.
Because I am too cool, man.
weirdly,
Nowhere to run!
Not cool moment. Not cool. ഒരു ആരോ കൂടെ അല്ലേ?
had to either
അതൊരു കൂൾ ട്രാൻസിഷൻ. ലാസ്കിൽ ഞാൻ. ഈസി. കണ്ട ഞാൻ കൂൾ ആയോണ്ട് ഞാൻ എനിക്കത് കിട്ടി. I'm too cool for me.
That's not to say there was no merit to Juggernaut at all. He was excellent against certain portions of the meta. In particular, he was strong against a lot of the popular support choices, like Disruptor or Phoenix. However, he unfortunately struggled against the strong cores of the tournament, like Tiny and Mars, who could tank his damage, or Storm Spirit, who easily slipped away from him. Overall, the meta game wasn't in his favor.
One more
Again,
game. അതും കൂടെ
a middle
കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട്
of the pack
എനിക്ക്
hero. He saw
another
playing
stream
8 games
നിർത്താം because
with a
I'm very
50%
tired.
win rate. However, this makes his
And I
performance
have to
sound worse than it
എന്റെ
actually
ഫുഡ്
was,
നടക്കുന്നു.
as he was banned
Match
19 times.
found.
These bans came from teams that either were using the aforementioned supports or were going up against Magnus. Magnus was one of the top picks of TI-10, and Magnus Juggernaut was a well-respected hero combination, as with Empower, Juggernaut could quickly outfarm anyone and keep up the necessary tempo to engage in the aforementioned Roshan fights. Even if that's not how the game played out, a nicely placed reverse polarity into an empowered Omnislash was a terrifying proposition, and so it made sense to take Juggernaut out of the hero pool. Unfortunately, that poses a new question. Did this mean that Juggernaut was good, or Magnus? 2022 brought only a few changes to Juggernaut. He could now get +1 second Blade Fury duration at level 15, and Aghanim's Shard had its purchase timing changed to be available at 15 minutes. These changes made Juggernaut a very popular core for a good few months, during which he played mostly centered entirely around Blade Fury. Unfortunately, this resulted in nerfs shortly before TI-11. His movement speed, shard bonus movement speed, and healing ward radius all were reduced. Heading into the International 11, the general game plan remained the same as at TI-10. It was mostly the cast of popular heroes that changed. The two new heroes, Marcy and Primal Beast, dominated the field. They saw a huge amount of play and were used by every team. Both of them were tanky strength heroes that didn't mind brawling and specialized in locking an opponent down. In other words, they destroyed Juggernaut. However, it wasn't just them. Tiny and Undying also held a firm grip on the meta, and Pudge had risen from obscurity into a top pick that dominated Juggernaut. Due to a series of nerfs, Magnus had fallen from grace, and without his assistance, Juggernaut was not able to compete in this new environment. He only saw play in 3 games, did horribly and ended the tournament with a 0% win rate. Item-wise, we were back to Magnus, but it didn't really
Scanning
matter.
ahead.
TI-11 was an absolute disaster for Juggernaut. Powered by newer, more powerful heroes and a metagame that didn't let him play.
Die.
Juggernaut has
What did I tell you? You have to be cool.
As a tanky pusher, held his own as a dipped briefly into being a support, and then finally dug his carry. On his travels, he was mostly defined by his surroundings, but his ability
Not
to
ready.
always strong. Their specificity meant that he needed the right circumstances to thrive. Those finally showed themselves at the International 6, where he took center stage and over the years, the idea of sieging a base was
I was not cool that moment.
New stage in 10.
memory and a part
Revealing area.
Roshan became
Found
the
them.
most important element.
Reloading.
And newer, faster heroes took over.
Stage 2.
Juggernaut was slowly exiled, as half his toolkit supported an outbreak and the other half was too late. He now sits at a crossroad between an offlaner and a carry. It could return to him.
Not cool, man.
As is, his future doesn't look bright. Glorious, as I think many of us expected. Juggernaut was by no means a bad hero. But
Scanning ahead.
Bring that down.
There they are.
But don't despair. Underneath that mask. Thank you so much.
Seconds until stage 2.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. Honestly, working on this jungle is
Stage 3.
exciting experience because we get to dig really deep into the history of Dota. There's so many honestly wait until
Found one.
But anyway, I honestly couldn't believe my eyes when I saw that the primary way to play Juggernaut at TI4
No more.
those games, they're actually pretty fun.
Revealing area.
Cool, man.
Special thanks, of course, as per
Tic-tac, tic-tac, I am remembering like 2 years back. I think college.
My ult is ready.
if you go to Meta, watch the videos over
Have to be fearless.
all on Meta.
Now four.
Only us.
Get out of my way.
ഞാൻ പാനിക്കായ എവിടെ സി പാനിക്കാവരുത് Oh my god. Calm.
I hope you guys enjoyed
Calm.
IO video. coming, which is of course a very big 2 hours long. Now, I want to be clear here that going forward, there's going to be one video
Scanning ahead.
first day of each month. That's when we are uploading. We uploaded a bit
Found
more
them.
frequently at the start here because we wanted to make sure there's content on the channel. So now it's going to be a little bit slower, but don't be scared.
ഞാൻ ആൾട്ട് വേസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യിപ്പിച്ചു ബിക്കോസ് ഐ എം എ ജീനിയസ്.
That means that you're able to just focus on making the videos really, really good, but also have a sustainable schedule that we will be able to stick to. So, that's really
Not
I hope
ready
you
yet.
guys enjoyed it.
ഞാൻ എന്തിനാ
Clean kill. Barrier.
ഡാർക്ക് ഗ്യാതറിംഗ് എന്നാണോ വരുന്നത്? അത് നാളെയാണോ വരുന്നത്? ഇന്നാണെന്തോ, ഇന്ന് രാവിലെ. ഓ,
Neutralized.
Battle out.
എന്നെ പോലത്തെ ഒരു ലെജൻഡറി പ്ലെയറിനൊക്കെ ഒരു ടീമിൽ എടുക്കാത്ത ആലോചിക്കുമ്പോഴാണ് വിഷമം വരുന്നത്.
You're watching the international.
വാലറന്റ് പ്ലെയേഴ്സ് കളി കാണുന്നില്ല. They are not witnessing plays. They are just witnessing something. ഞാൻ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു എല്ലാം അങ്ങ് തകർന്നു.
Reloading.
അത് കണ്ടോ ആ പ്രിസിഷൻ? എനിക്ക് ഉറക്കം വരുന്നു. ആർക്കല്ലേ ഈസി.
Flash out.
ഓ അത് ജീവനോടെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ എടുത്തെങ്കിൽ. ഓ അത് കണ്ടു. ഇതൊരു എന്ത് ചെയ്യാ? ഞാൻ പണ്ട് ഈ തീരില്ലേടേ, പെട്ടെന്ന് കൊല്ലും കഴിക്കാൻ. ഞാൻ സ്കോപ്പ് ചെയ്യണ്ടായിരുന്നു. സ്കാൻ കിട്ടിയാൽ സ്കോപ്പ് ചെയ്യരുത്. സ്കാൻ കിട്ടിയില്ലെങ്കിൽ സ്കോപ്പ് ചെയ്യും. What did I say? ഓക്കെ, എനിവേസ് ഞാൻ ഇന്നത്തേക്ക് നിർത്തുവാണ്. കാരണം ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞല്ലോ മറ്റേ ഞാൻ പിന്നെ ചെയ്യാൻ എന്തായാലും കഴിഞ്ഞ ദിവസം കുറച്ച് സ്മൈറ്റിലൊന്ന് കളിച്ചായിരുന്നു. സോ ഐ ഗസ് ഞാൻ ഇന്നത്തേക്ക് നിർത്തുവാണ്. സ്ട്രീം ഞാൻ നിർത്തുക കാരണം വയ്യ. ഞാൻ പതിവ് പോലെ ഗുഡ് ബൈ, ജി ജീസ് ടു ബി കണ്ടിന്യൂഡ്. ബൈ ബൈ.